Alright, so in this second part of the series, I wanted to share how I'm really just reading this as it is, as I see it on the page. I'm not preparing anything ahead of time, or or I'm doing a bit of, it helps to do a bit of research, but I kind of wanted to really get a feel for it, especially because I've been honoring being more intuitive and trusting that intuition, literally like intuition rather than this one. So so the first chart I'm going to go through is, I kind of had to separate two because there's so many stars included, and I'm actually going to zoom this out. So this one is the first chart. You can probably see right here. And as you can probably see, it's the same one. The focal point is on midheaven, specifically midheaven, Pallas Athena, and Arachne. So Arachne, for those who don't know, Arachne was a very talented weaver. I think she was just mortal. And apparently, there was a contest between her and the gods, and Athena was there because she's also a goddess of weaving, so it's about being skillful. And Arachne was very talented, so she she won over the gods. Specifically, she won over Athena, and Athena didn't like it. Because something else happened. I totally forgot that she was so grief-stricken or something like that. Something happened. I totally forgot that she basically died from that grief. And Athena felt pity for her, made her into the first spider. That's why Arachne. So, but it talks to us about our own natural skills for connecting the dots, being more in touch with our guides and guidance, so creativity as well. I took some notes here actually on Arachne. So it has a lot to do also if we have we're overconfident about certain things. But we do have the natural talents. We have natural talents for artistry, craftsmanship, putting things together. Okay, more like exceptional abilities, right? Really good skills. But to the point where others, especially others, become jealous of us because it's so good. It's a gift. It's a gift, right? Here the shadow is to honor one's talent and stop belittling oneself. Okay, but give in or stand firm. It's a difference between giving in and standing firm in one's own skills and really embracing that as a beautiful thing. A lot of intuition as well here. There's a nuanced quality of intuition. I got this notes from the internet. The importance of introspection. What's missing, the ability to find out little things. I saw this also in the page. Evaluativeness before decisions. Intuitiveness, okay. Things, gift-related consequences that are unfavorable, showing off, expertise, decision-making, showcasing your talents, rain or shine kind of thing. The difference between kind of sticking with it or just giving up, meaning pertaining to natural skills. It also pertains to confrontations with authority or resistance. Also boastfulness or bravery. Okay, so boastfulness is it's ego stuff versus bravery. It's just okay, no matter what everyone says, right? And also competitiveness in a healthy or unhealthy way. So it's really being true to yourself, really, right? So wherever it is in your charts is where you get triggered, where you trigger reactions because of your divine gifts, really. combine that with Pallas Athena, and it's this conjunct right here, as you can probably see. And hers is about, of course, being able to fight when it's right, in being intellectual, and also you can say intuition is part of that too. Intellect with intuition, so strategy, right? But it has a lot to do also with rising above authoritative desires and intentions and wants and expectations, societal expectations, specifically if it's against the norm, against what was already built, in this case the patriarchy. And this isn't saying, of course, going against the patriarchy or being feminist or anything like that, but that's what it is really, right? We want equality. So it's a lot to do with equality, right? I want to point this out. I want to add in here, I know you can probably see this, but in my chart here, both Arachne and Pallas Athena were in retrograde. And so that's a lot of doubting of my own skills, because of what the public might see me as, especially because it's literally right there in mid-heaven. So it has a lot to do with reputation and ego, for sure. Based on some things I've dug up, more on Pallas Athena, because I don't know if you know this, but Pallas was she was a best friend, or he was best friend, whatever, of Athena, but apparently accidentally killed Pallas, but took on her name. Or there's some sources that apparently that Athena swallowed her, so it became kind of like a joining of one thing. But there are other figures in the mythology that kind of make more sense to me, what makes sense regarding specifically this body. Right, so one of the things was, so of course there's justice as well versus immorality, intuition, resourcefulness. What else is there here? Knowing when to fighting for the underdog, defense over offense, knowing when to fight. Really, it's really up here, but it's also intuitive, because it's, if you don't know this yet, but Athena was born out of Zeus's head. But the story behind it actually is Metis was her mother, really. Or rather, in the mythology, she was the mother. But Zeus was afraid that he would be taken over by the children, just like the fear of Uranus, Uranus, and the fear of Kronos. So it kind of got passed on, but that didn't really happen. So Athena was already. Actually, Metis was already born. She was already pregnant with Athena, but when Zeus swallowed her up, he didn't know that. So she was forced to come out of his head, and then apparently Hephaestus was the one who he became this midwife or mid-husband in this case to kind of help Zeus get to bear the child. But in this case, he was weird. But anyways, I don't know what happened to Magus after that. But the point is that it was like a rebirth in a way. So Zeus favored her eventually later on. But what that means is that there's something about here regarding asexuality. So it's more self-creation, self-reformation, inner creativity, but also because of the fact that Athena survived, meaning like she went through the process, it kind of led to really like that whole like, it's like, oh, it's talented, you can't just disappear. In other words, there's a certain power to that. And apparently, according to some of the sources that I read, it was like Athena the gods were like in awe when she came out, when she was born. So, and because of all this stuff too, it also has a lot to do with the patriarchy, in this case male reproduction. So in this case male creativity, right? But it ties in a lot to do with Athena, because that means Athena represents men having this ability to also be creative in different ways. You know, physically speaking, we cannot bear children if you're cis male. But this kind of ties in with transgendered men who can do that. And you can say realistic because they were born female. Well, that's the term we have to really get used to, where there's a term called what's it called? Male assigned at birth, female assigned at birth. Those are the real, genuine terms in terms of that, because it's not who they identify with. And I know this is all ego stuff because it is identity, but it's identity out of the old identity. Of course, as Eckhart says, you have to kind of be careful as where the ego takes hold of that as well, because identity is part of the ego. It latches on because it's afraid of dying. It latches on because it's afraid of, it's all fear-based. So this is part of that, accepting your own, could be accepting your own asexuality, your own productive abilities, or your own reproductive abilities, or the lack thereof. It doesn't matter. It's real acceptance. That kind of ties in specifically with Arachne in the story with her and Athena. Then the stuff here as well. So Athena, Pallas Athena specifically, aided in this. Okay, it's pictures. Okay, so when she aided in the victory of others, it was guidance, prudence, in that inner voice. That's what's right. So that's what it's saying to me. She's kind of apparently like the opposite of Artemis, where Artemis was uncivilized, whereas Athena was civilized. So a lot pertains to do with holiness, cleanliness, refinement, what I call here homebodyhood. Meaning like it's all about accepting, but more about that you kind of have this roots of it's godliness. You know, I've been raised in this, I guess you can say, belief that cleanliness is close to godliness. So it's basically the same. It's very similar to that. And there's also another part here based on the myth that because Athena was pre-Hellenic, absorbed into Greek culture, to me that refers to ancient wisdom. And when she became patron of Athens, she gifted them with the olive tree, fruits of one's labor. To me, that's championship, fruits of one's labor, rewards from pushing through. But when it comes to compare to what Poseidon did, when he gave the people of Athens trade, water, or access to water, or access to the sea power, and transport, and also the first horse, they really couldn't do much about it, right? So, but Athena gave them wood, oil, food, so basics. But in this case, more like future thinking. So it's a lot of wisdom there. So what's more important towards health and wellness? So that ties in with the godliness, the godlyhood, being clean, being, and all that stuff. But it also pertains to like your own acceptance of your own sexuality. Battle of the sexes conflict. What role do you play? But it's more like both. You have the yin yang thing. So that, I think Pallas Athena represents that. So apparently there was just another story there where Halirrhothius, Poseidon's son, was avenging his father, but he failed and he died from the axe, killing him instead. So this kind of thing where Athena reminds us of our own ability to be able to just observe and stand back. Or in this case, when she would punish other mortals, it has a lot to do with like jealousy and rage. So being able to discern. So Pallas Athena is a lot to do with discernment. Right? So whether because it could be poisoning, it could be dangerous, it has consequences. Right? And only knowing when to act, really. Again, discernment. When she was apparently raped, Hephaestus tried to rape her, but she wiped his semen off, and the semen landed on the earth, causing Gaia to give birth to Arachne. So, or Hephaestus having been allowed to marry her because he was the mid-husband. And Athena left during the consummation process, and then he eventually did the same thing. He ejaculated into the earth, got pregnant with Gaia. So Athena represents a lot of that, again, that godhood, divinehood, purity, cleanliness, chastity, but also forgiveness. Okay, because it's moving past the trauma through service and lessons passed on. When people try to, it's a kind of just like, okay, well, you did what you did, you were just horny, you were drunk, you were unconscious. So there's that wisdom that comes from that as well. So free will as well is part of this. Standing up for what's right, justice before justice. This one that caught my attention. It came to me as like, oh, justice before justice. So you don't want to seek justice as in revenge, but see it's like, okay, well, you have to see it from exactly as it is. Right? This is why I think Athena was also in the stories, in the myth. She had pity on people she probably hurt, or who did try. When you do try, you're worthy of something. So, but it's more about self-worth, right? And eventually, blessings will come to you when you really realize your self-worth. So Pallas Athena represents that as well. So unforetold knowledge as well, that's Athena. Also hidden knowledge or trusting wisdom in divine, being okay with not knowing, that's Pallas Athena. Because apparently there was a story about the 3 daughters of Cecrops. They shouldn't open this box, but they did, and then two of the 3 sisters jumped off the city, what they call the Acropolis at that time, and then they died instantly. But Athena told them not to open it. So there's a lot to do with trusting, more than just not just obedient. She just said, don't open it. So, right? So, yeah. Oh, so Arachne hung herself. Okay, but she took pity on her, became okay. There's also turning of Medusa into a Gorgon, but when she was the one who was basically raped by Poseidon. So a lot of Athena's stuff can also be about misprojection, denial, misprojection, because we don't know how to deal with control over us. So it's kind of like, because of the control factor, we kind of project, it's projection. But really what we should be looking at is, by letting go, it's a bit of a shadow thing as well. By accepting the fact that someone tried to control us, that's their thing. I will not be controlled, as standing again in your own power. It's very similar to Arachne, actually. So yeah. So she did a lot of things where she turned other mortals into other things like Myrtle, on olive tree. She helped a lot of like the heroes, so a lot of support and guidance again, because that's easy. So a lot of that whole also male empowerment, because when you have an empowered male, like real genuine empowerment, he's not going to be like the rapist, he's not going to be the douchebag, he's not going to be any of those things, he's not going to behave those things, he's not going to come out of ego, or at least very little of that, and he's going to be more like the man. But whether you're talking about man or women, doesn't matter. Your own maleness, really accepting that when to really assert yourself, when to stand firm. That's what Pallas Athena represents, having wisdom in that. Also, has a lot to do probably with learning from one's mistakes and repayment, conclusiveness, the need to be one who's right, so temperament, unconscious behavior. So again, it ties back into that. So Pallas Athena is really that whole discernment, a lot of discernment and processing. So I wrote here that's about cooperation, where we gain wisdom from the fact that everything is the same and one exactly using our inner eye. Right? Being able to see, okay. Right? And being awakened from that unconscious behavior as well. So with the chart here, midheaven, I've had to really learn this myself. I know this. It's like I care as I get older, I care less and less about my reputation, and it's like, fuck it. I don't care. And a lot of that, a little bit of that is, I can feel it, it's a bit of resentment, but it's not really as much anymore as before. And it's just the way it is. So with this YOD, you can probably already see it with green lines right there. Right, this is a quincunx to specific ones. If you look at the degrees of 22, 27, so around between YOD, we're talking about, I read in one of my books that it's like, if it's about past life stuff, usually the orb is usually about 8 degrees. But if it's just a quincunx on its own, if you're referring to just a quincunx, it'll be 2 degrees. That's a very, was it 5? No, 2. So anywhere from 24 to, because this is a 5 degree mark, I would say 5 is in between the medium, the mean between the two, so midheaven really, right? So anything around 25, 27, 22 is the mark line. But because we're also talking about, I also include past life stuff because of the fixed stars. I go as far as right here, Toliman, actually. Actually, it was even as far as Mars. But let's go all the way as far only as Toliman, and only as far as, I would say, Mercury, right here. So many of these planets are right here, right? As you can probably see already, it's like, oh my goodness, where are all these? So, Toliman was actually the fixed star. What was she? I think it was Alpha Centauri. Toliman. Yeah, Alpha Centauri. So any of the centaur, really they're all kind of similar, but based on the books that I've had, so I look into 2 main sources here. Maybe I'll tell you about it, but maybe not. I type in Alpha Centauri. Something about the Centaurians. They do follow the cosmic law of one. Everything vibrates at different frequency. So very much also in tune with the universe, basically. High frequency, high vibration I would say beyond. I would say above fifth dimension. But there's also let's take a look. Oh, okay, here we go. Okay. So where's the solutions? But this is Alpha B Centauri. Solutions are the Hadarians. That's Alpha B. Alpha B, but it's still Alpha Centauri. So yeah, it is. It's very similar to that. So with Toliman's there, it's something to do with Centaurians. A very kind, very, I don't know, the way I see it, it kind of ties in with Horus, where they're very high up there in terms of the elevated energy. Horus, and ties in with Horus because Horus is in astrology, I believe the way he represents the clairs, the 5 clairs. So for me it's transcendence, and that transcendence is actually why I'm very sensitive to my my surroundings, the feelings that I have. So I'm going to go further into Horus here. To elevate oneself to the self, right? Strength, where we gain insights when we go within. I believe that Horus, that's Horus. Just to sum it up, because there's so much information here. And then there's also Apollo. You can probably see in the chart here. But I'm going to type in Apollo here because Apollo is when it's very ties into the Toliman and the Hadarians and that Centauri sort of area there, the Alpha Centauri area, because they're very much like, I think they're a lot to do with like, I don't know really what it is. I don't take my word for it, but something to do with like love of music probably. I don't know, something to do with being connected to that kind of stuff. But here's the thing about Apollo. Apollo is wants to just live. So just like the sun, right? Very Libra, Venus-like. So a lot of it could be about jealousy, dependence on ex-lovers, resentment with current partner, self-expression. Also Venus, sun-like. Now, a lot of it is creativity, so very much, but a lot of the Venus stuff as well. So a lot of it is living, so real pleasure, right? According to Astrology King, he called it like the rock and roll love kind of thing. But it does tie in with the Horus, a little bit of the Taurus, kind of this. But there's also the fixed star here, Marsic. Let's take a look here. Marsic. I don't know what that is. I forgot what it was. Marsic. Let me open up. This one. Here we go. Sorry, I'm opening up files here that show. So conjunct Uranus, Marsic. Who's Marsic? I think Marsic was in one of the constellations. Totally forgot what that was. Oh, Toliman, let's go back to Toliman. So, fatalistic attitude, generous position of unicorn to Ptolemy. I think this is Ptolemy stuff here. The star imparts to its natives fatalistic attitude, generates a position of honor, and grants the native refinement possibilities and friends who come to the native's assistance. Jupiter, Venus, nature. So again, it's very similar to Sun, Venus. The whole Apollo thing ties in here. Very pleasure-seeking. But I'm going to type in here. Oh. I love how when I speed things up and it just doesn't work. Okay, so in the constellation of Hercules, Marsic. So with the Hercules constellation here, you don't say anything about Marsic, but it does say that with the Hercules constellation has a lot to do with like heroicness or something like that, craftiness, there's a lot, actually. Well, sort of. Oh, Mercury. Strength of character, tenacity, and fixity of purpose. Ardent nature and dangerous passions. Okay, that's a Ptolemy. That's what Ptolemy said about it. So that makes sense, where it kind of ties in because it's in Scorpio. With the Apollo thing, you know, just really getting into too much into your head, into the ego. And then just Zube something. Zuben? Here we go. This is Zuben Eklarab or something. Zuben. I think it's Sagittarius. Nope. What was it? Zuben El Akrab. Yeah, Libra constellation. So in the Libra constellation, I'm assuming this is something to do with Venus as well. Again, of course, balance, karmic budget, justice, punishing hate and rewarding love. Okay, this really ties into the Apollo theme. Horus is kind of different because it's fighting your inner warrior, right? And figuring out how to get into that. But with these ones, there's also even like Arachne. I never figured out what Arachne was. I'm going to skip that one because I don't know. I didn't find anything on Arachne. But I believe Arachne is also in the Libra constellation. No, it's not. So, but tying that into all this stuff with Uranus and also Agena there. Agena is the same as Hadar. It's kind of the same thing. I believe this is what I discovered, but there was apparently with the Hadarians, there was a collective trauma. They were used by the Draconians. They were invaded, and then they were used to, they were slaves, they were misused, they were abused. It ties into the whole Pluto theme, or just Pluto ruled Scorpio theme. And why I've always felt this sort of like, it's like a blessing in disguise, as people might say, and people might call it, where I'm, because it's tied into my Mercury-Uranus conjunction, and also Lilith is right here as well. Lilith, the asteroid, though, where it's like I have these thoughts of this like thick ass fucking guard, and explains why I have all these fixed stars right here. Right, so this blessing of this, like, kind of knowing how to know who to trust, and really, even today, I still do that, and that's okay, because I embrace that. You know, you can call it the Lilith, Lilith way, whatever. It's like, fuck it. It's just, but in a way where it's more like, they do what they do, you do what you do, whatever, but I'm not going to play that game. Okay, so I do sometimes forget to sometimes be clear about my intentions, and one of the things I've been learning with my South Node is, especially because the South Node was in Aquarius and ruled by Uranus, it all ties in here, right? So zoom this out, right here. But the moon was also square to that. So even though I have this YOD here, there's a sort of like, this is why I get nervous, and that's the 8th house thing, but also ties in with the 4th house. So it's very fucking visceral, the nervousness I get when people have this certain way of, like, loudness, for example, loud noises. I live in the basement, I hear thuds all the time too. It affects me in a very visceral way, but in a way that's good. It keeps me awake and keeps me alert. You know, I'm not, I guess you can say that it's, especially because of this Pluto ruled areas, these signs right here, all of them are Pluto ruled right here. All of them. A lot to do with power struggles, a lot to do with that regarding relationships, because Pluto was in Libra. So it has that airiness to this heavy water, right? So guard up. Right? Hard to open up that shell, because I have this, it's all affected by fourth house stuff. It's affected by that. The sun is there as well. Right? that explains that. But I've learned how to adjust with that quincunx there. I'm learning to adjust to knowing to discern, being discerning, and trusting, and really, like, sometimes I don't know how to, I think I'm forced to discern. This is what the retrograde effect here is for. You know, it's reminding me to be more really discerning in what reputation really means. What does this ego? Because you'll continue to die. I'll continue to die. We're talking like, now it's more like mini versions of the dark night of the soul. But it still does happen, where it's just like, it's just, you know, because, but now I more like, how I sit in my power is like that whole being present thing. I'm giving into the death, I'm giving into the dying, and the potential for rot, the potential for death, the potential for disease, the potential for everything that really traumatizes pretty much most of us. And this is why now I don't care about swearing on my thing, because it's like, tomorrow could be the end of the world and I didn't do my best today. Fuck it. I'm gonna do my best today. I'm gonna give it all, right? But I'm gonna do it at my own pace, at my own way, at my own style. Meaning like what I descended here to do. What's good for this body. I have to honor that, right? Love isn't about being a fucking doormat. Love is about honor. Love is about respecting and balance. Love is about wholeness. Love is about understanding that it's like, okay, no, this isn't like the whole fucking Piscean age thing where it's like, I'm just going to sacrifice everything. Nah, no, fuck that. No, I mean this. So, continuing on with this YOD. I love the twist there, right? Going to the next chart. You can see it's very similar still. So now we have like Mercury, Uranus right there. It's kind of emptied out, so to speak, because of all those charts there. It's a little bit clearer now, right? But now we go into the other side where it's now sextiling. This, when it's sextile now, it's like 6 degrees. So anywhere between, Uranus is a big player here, but it still ties into Mercury, I would say, because we do like talking about, where I was referring to the past lives that I've had with the fixed stars, with being, especially with the Hadar stuff. That one's a big one, because most people know about Hadar, or at least it's compared to the other fixed stars, like compared to the other stars, at least in the Centauri. We're talking about the past lives energy that I've had. Relating it to that, definitely a past life thing. Explains why. Very much like collective trauma, where I used to feel a lot of, still do sometimes, or I still get affected by, because I wondered all the time, like, why am I getting affected by people, not only gay people, not only LGBT, but people who are abused and incarcerated, ostracized. That is Uranus thing as well, being like different, being, doing the unusual but reform, but really learning to really stand your ground and getting knowledge from that. It's Atlas, right? Atlas was Uranus. So, and using our own intellect, our own devices, our own ways of drawing intellect from higher above, but being connected with it and kind of bringing forth the actual holiness and the heavenliness about it, all of it in this form right here now. So tying that back into the Hadarian past, plus also the one chart, the one, was it Toliman? Yeah, right? With the blessings of current, yes, asteroids, right? Horus, even Apollo, really embracing that gift and learning to adjust, because it ties back into quincunx, ties back into midheaven. Arachne is right here as well, right? Tying that back in and really realizing it's like, okay, it's okay to be that different. It's okay to it's okay to have a dark side. It's okay to swear. It's okay, as long as it's the energy that we're focusing on being aware of, and that is the energy poisoning myself. If it's not, if I'm just being honest with the emotion and I'm just like owning it, this is what I feel, let others do whatever they want to do, let others do whatever, it's not going to, no. At least not anymore. So, but with the sextile, turning that back into the sextile, the quincunx, because it is, I'm moving it further out into the 8-degree orb rather than just a strict 2 degrees, because this has a lot to do with past lives. So when we're talking about past lives, this I include as far as not just Mercury but Hadar as well, and as far back probably as Mars right here, because we looked at right here 27 degrees, right? 8 degrees from that is 15 degrees, so 5, 8 versus 5. Okay, so that makes sense to have Mars included in there slightly. Either way, it's still part of that. So there's that assertiveness, that anger that I need to express, to be honest and really true to myself, right? Sagittarius. So with this now, with this whole you can see a lot of we're going to skip the Pluto part here. We're going to go all the way to as far as Haumea right here. Big circle of fucking like a lot of fixed stars there. Super Galactic Center is also there. So do get pulled into this whole. We already kind of talked about it before with the third house, where I'm pulled into this kind of stuff, right? Being able to teach it, but in this case now where I'm not doing too much, or I'm not going to go dig into too much information, because it's like I'm not here to. I've done that South Node thing in Aquarius. You know, everybody has the right to. When I say right, as in you have the right to do what's good for you, and what comes to you when it's timed and when you want to. And if you're desired, if it clicks with you, go ahead and do a bit of more research with your own chart. Great. But one of the things I have to really honor is like, well, I can do this for sure, but I also don't want to talk too much. It's like, blah, blah, blah. So, which I do a lot in my charts anyways, when my readings, but I try not to do too much. Just enough so that when I'm actually energized, I'll do that. So we have here Adasic, Zanaya. We talked about Zanaya before. Adasic is it's a draconian planet. It's a draconian star. So it has something to do again with that whole discipline thing. But with its sextiling, let's look at the Uranus as a focal point here. To 24, go far as back as 4 degrees. That's why I went to Adasic right here. Because we're talking about past life stuff. So a lot of it has a lot to do with knowing how to know what to say, who to say it to, with whom to say it with to. Okay, and being careful with just like slowing down with relationships, slowing down how we relate with people. That if people don't communicate that well, that's totally fine. Markeb is also right here. We already talked a bit about Markeb. We already talked about Zaviava. But I just want to double check for myself. It's Toliman, Regulus, Alkide. Alkide is also in here. Markeb was in the Argo Naves constellation, something to do with the quest. So really, like, it's a lot of it is devotion, more like very kind of like a Jupiter sort of thing, right? Really going for something in your it's an adventure, being adventurous in this, despite all this like plight and all this Saturn stuff. That's totally fine. You probably saw it when I say Saturn. I mean like Saturn's right here, right? Saturn right there. Zaviava is right here. Also, is in the Virgo constellation, so that's where it ties in with the Jupiter and Virgo things, like little bits of things, little bits and pieces, love, action, things that you do. Nature of Mercury, that says here, to a lesser degree the Sun. So that means really knowing your facts and who to talk to, really, because it ties into, but who's to talk to it, because it's in the last few degrees. So as far as Supergalactic Center all the way to Haumea is actually, all of these degrees are very close to the last few degrees, except for Haumea, maybe as far as Zaviava, all the way to Supergalactic Center. All those were in later degrees of Virgo and in the 3rd house. So that means like really learning how to transition to being more strict with oneself, having more disciplined mind, disciplined adaptation, that it's okay to adapt to your environment, 3rd house stuff. It's okay to meet people, it's okay to do those things. But the gifts that I'm getting here, it's just like, and I think this is why I also have one conjuncting to Saturn, and actually Juno is right here as well. Draco fixed star is because probably that whole like learning how to be more disciplined and having that order in my life. And that's the thing, I can learn from a bit of that narcissism as well, and that's okay. And this is the gift of that whole thing. I don't have to be that narcissist, which I feel like we don't want to, but we also don't want to project to that. We want to find the gifts in narcissism itself so that we ourselves are whole and more elevated. Because if you find the gifts in something, when you find it's all love, right? So it's higher elevation. I'm not going to mention anything more about Haumea and Hekate and Orpheus, but it does go all the way back to finding your own inner balance inside your creativity, balance, sorry, that's a Libra thing. More like your own inner creativity, your own regenerative abilities, your own ability to create. Because you have that motherness, you have nature inside, you have Mother Nature inside, right here. That's Haumea. With Hekate, learning with that magic as well. Transmute, and know when to block off, know when to know to be aware of your surroundings. It's all about awareness with nature. Combine that with that. So how that goes into that whole sextile thing right here. I know that was a lot, but to me it's all fun, and I'm able to just combine it all and make sense for what makes sense for me, because it is my chart. It's my journey, it's a path I took, it's a soul contract. So here I've learned to really, I can hone this energy, I can tap into it when it's called for. It's usually with external forces. But because I'm comfortable with this ability to just I know what to do, somehow with the quincunx to this, when ego and reputation are in line, are on the line, sorry, then I have to learn to say, okay, give over, without giving over. This is because basically what it's telling me right here, that it's it's okay to have a certain reputation, but don't make it about others, make it about yourself. For me, it's been that way, where it's I've learned to oh, okay. Learn from the mistakes, learn from the, and heal from that, and say that it's okay. Forgive the macho, aggressive, chauvinistic, heterocentric, heteronormative, all that shit. It's just, that's all the unconscious shit that people have. When I'm guided, when I listen, and I'm still in the stillness, that's when I can tap into a greater power that is not what we think is power. It's really love, right? So it comes back up, and that's what it is. So that's the gist of that. So it's a little bit of a shorter video today, and that's okay, because we get the point of this whole thing. Next one, I'm not sure how it's going to go, because we're just going to go with it. But anyways, I hope you guys have a good time. I hope that helps as I readjust the camera here. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you guys later. Remember, always be present. I'm not going to end today's session with video with a mini meditation, but go back to yourself, go back to grounding, and find yourself not in yourself, not here, but starting with your body, or your attention is where you move it. And take a cold shower. I really recommend do that. Actually, do the breathing first and then take a cold shower. Make it a practice. If you really want to. That's up to you. We all have free will. So, and there you go. Pallas Athena. Free will. Right? So, I think that's about it. So thank you so much. I'll see you guys later.